Hello everyone and welcome to this writing lesson. We're going to be looking at essays. An essay is a piece of writing several paragraphs long. It is about one topic, just as a paragraph is. However, because the topic of an essay is too complex to discuss in one paragraph, you need to divide it into several paragraphs, one for each major point. Then you need to tie the paragraphs together by adding an introduction and a conclusion. Writing an essay is no more difficult than writing a paragraph, except that an essay is longer. The principles of organization are the same for both. So if you can write a good paragraph, you can write a good essay. An essay has three main parts: an introduction or an introductory paragraph, as you can see, a body where you need at least one, but usually two or more paragraphs, and a conclusion or a concluding paragraph. Now, this chart shows you how the parts of a paragraph correspond to the parts of an essay. As you can see, in a paragraph, you have three parts: a topic sentence, some supporting sentences, and a concluding sentence. In an essay, it's pretty much the same thing. In an essay, instead of a topic sentence as the introduction, you have a whole paragraph as the introduction. Instead of supporting sentences, you have body paragraphs which support the introductory paragraph. And instead of a concluding sentence, you have a concluding paragraph. Now let's look into the details. An essay introduction stimulates the reader's interest and tells what the essay is about. It consists of two parts: a few general statements to attract your reader's attention, and a thesis statement to state the main idea of the essay. Often, your answer to the topic is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is often one sentence, and usually the last sentence in your introduction paragraph. A thesis statement for an essay is like a topic sentence for a paragraph. It names the specific topic and gives the reader a general idea of the contents of the essay. The body consists of one or more paragraphs. Each body paragraph has its own topic sentence and supporting ideas. The body paragraphs may or may not have concluding sentences. Each body paragraph explains or develops a subdivision of the topic, so the number of paragraphs in the body varies with the number of subdivisions or subtopics. The conclusion, like the concluding sentence in a paragraph, is a summary or review of the main points discussed in the body. An essay has unity and coherence, just as a paragraph does. Transition signals and the repetition of key nouns link the paragraphs into a cohesive essay. Let's take a look at this model essay about the influence of Native Americans on modern U.S. culture. I'm going to ask you to read this essay, and while you're reading it, try to look for the answers to these questions. The questions are: how many paragraphs does this essay contain? How many paragraphs are in the body? What the topic sentence of each body paragraph is, and what the thesis statement is. Now, I want you to pause your video and read this essay. Then play the video after you're finished reading. As you may have noticed, this essay contains 6 paragraphs. These 4 paragraphs are in the body. These are the topic sentences for each body paragraph. And this is the thesis statement. The thesis statement says the Native Americans have made contributions to the U.S. culture in 4 areas of language, art, food, and government. Notice that each of these 4 areas is discussed in a separate body paragraph. Now let's examine the parts of an essay in more detail. First, a look at the introductory paragraph. An introductory paragraph has 2 parts, some general statements and a thesis statement. The general statements introduce the general topic of the essay and capture the reader's interest. After capturing your reader's interest, you need the thesis statement, which states the specific topic and may list subtopics or subdivisions of the main topic or subtopics. And it may indicate the pattern of organization of the essay. And finally, is normally the last sentence in the introductory paragraph. Take a look at the introductory paragraph of the model essay again to see how it captures the reader's interest and how it states the topic and the subtopics. The first sentence is about the arrival of Europeans and their encounter with new cultures. The next sentence points out that there were large differences between European and Native Americans. The next 2 sentences say that a 2-way cultural exchange happened, but the direction of the exchange and the specific items are not identified. The thesis statement is specific. It gives the direction of the exchange, Native American influences on modern US culture. And it lists the subtopics, which are language, art, food, and government. This type of introductory paragraph is called a funnel introduction. If you think about it, you can see that this introductory paragraph is shaped like a funnel, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. It begins with 1 or 2 very general sentences about the topic. Each subsequent sentence becomes increasingly focused on the topic until the last sentence, which states very specifically what the essay will be about. Running a funnel introduction is like focusing a camera with a telephoto lens. You start with a wide picture and gradually narrow the focus so that just one object appears in the camera's viewfinder, your thesis statement. Here's another model paragraph. This one is about culture shock. Let's read this one together and see how this writer has tried to capture the attention of the readers and how it leads into the thesis statement. Now let's read this together. Moving to a new country can be an exciting, even an exhilarating experience. In a new environment, you somehow feel more alive, seeing new sights, eating new food, hearing the foreign sounds of a new language, and feeling a different climate against your skin stimulate your senses as never before. Soon, however, this sensory bombardment becomes sensory overload. Suddenly, new experiences seem stressful rather than stimulating, and delight turns into discomfort. This is the phenomenon known as culture shock. Culture shock is more than jet lag or homesickness, and it affects nearly everyone who enters a new culture. Tourists, business travelers, diplomats, and students alike. Now this is the thesis statement. Although not everyone experiences culture shock in exactly the same way, many experts agree that it has roughly 5 stages. Attention-grabbing introductions are not very difficult to write. You can be creative in capturing the attention of your readers and try different ways of writing. One way would be to use dramatic, interesting, or funny stories in the introduction. Another way would be to start your introductory paragraph with surprising statistics or facts. So it all depends on your topic and how you want to get your reader's attention. Let's read some attention-grabbing introductions and see how they lead to the thesis statement. In this paragraph, the writer has used an interesting story to capture the reader's attention. Let's read it together. On November 14th, 1963, a few miles off the southern coast of Iceland, the crew of a fishing boat noticed smoke on the horizon. Thinking that another fishing boat was on fire, they went to investigate. When they got closer, they discovered that the smoke was not from a boat on fire. Rather, it was from an undersea volcano about to erupt. The next day, ash, cinders, and pumice were blown 1,000 feet into the air. The fishermen had witnessed a rare event, the violent birth of an island. The volcano continued to erupt for about 4 years, eventually creating an island about 1 square mile in area and 560 feet in height. Now here's the thesis statement. The birth of Surtsey, as the island is named, offered scientists an extraordinary opportunity to learn how life takes hold on a sterile landmass. Now let's look at another introductory paragraph that uses surprising facts to grab attention. Let's read it together. Got high blood pressure? Try a truffle. Worried about heart disease? Buy a bonbon. It's the best news in years. Studies in 2 prestigious scientific journals say dark chocolate is good for you. It seems that eating a small piece of dark chocolate regularly can reduce the risk of heart disease, because dark chocolate, but not milk chocolate or white chocolate, contains high amounts of flavonoids, which are powerful cholesterol-fighting compounds. What is the next health food going to be? Ice cream? Sugar cookies? Now here's the thesis statement. There are so many conflicting news stories about which foods are good for you that it is often difficult to make the right choices at the supermarket. We have talked about attention-grabbing introductions and funnel introductions. In your introductory paragraph, you can choose how to start depending on the topic. Now, let's zoom in on the thesis statement. The thesis statement is the most important sentence in the introduction. It states the specific topic of the essay. Native Americans have made many valuable contributions to modern U.S. culture. Sometimes a thesis statement lists the subtopics that will be discussed in the body. Look at this. Native Americans have made many valuable contributions to modern U.S. culture, particularly in the areas of language, art, food, and government. And sometimes a thesis statement also indicates the pattern of organization that the essay will follow. For example, this thesis statement is obviously signaling a compare-contrast organization. There are several differences between a nurse practitioner and a physician's assistant. The body paragraphs in an essay are like the supporting sentences in a paragraph. They are the place to develop your topic and prove your points. You should organize body paragraphs according to some sort of pattern, such as chronological order or comparison-contrast. Sometimes, depending on your topic, you will need to use a combination of patterns. What are logical division of ideas? A basic pattern for essays is logical division of ideas. In this pattern, you divide your topic into subtopics, and then discuss each subtopic in a separate paragraph. Logical division is an appropriate pattern for explaining causes, reasons, types, qualities, methods, advantages, and disadvantages. Here are 3 keys to organizing a logical division essay. Divide your topic into subtopics, and then discuss each subtopic in a separate paragraph. Write a thesis statement that indicates a logical division. Use transitions between paragraphs to guide your reader from one subtopic to another. The thesis statement of a logical division essay often indicates the number of subtopics. Look at these examples. Native Americans have made valuable contributions to modern U.S. culture in 4 main areas. Another example, inflation has 3 causes. The thesis statement may even name the specific subtopics. For example, Native Americans have made many valuable contributions to modern U.S. culture, particularly in the areas of language, art, food, and government. Inflation has 3 causes: excessive government spending, unrestrained consumer borrowing, and an increase in the supply of paper money. Paired conjunctions like both and, not only, but also, are an especially effective way to list 2 subtopics. For example, young people in my culture have less freedom than young people in the United States, not only in their choice of lifestyle, but also in their choice of careers. Another example, puppies, like children, need both love and discipline to become responsible members of society. A colon is often useful before lists of 2, 3, or more subtopics in a thesis statement. Look at this. Young people in my culture have less freedom than young people in the United States in 3 areas: where they live, whom they marry, and what their job is. The father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, believed that the human mind had 3 separate parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. Notice that subtopics are in parallel form, which means that they have the same grammatical form. In examples A, D, and F, all are nouns. In example B, all are adjective plus noun phrases. In example C, all are prepositional phrases. And in example E, all are dependent noun clauses. What are some common problems you may face when writing a thesis statement? A thesis statement is the most important sentence in your essay, so write it with special thought and care. Let's take a look at 3 common problems. Common problem number 1 is that the thesis is too general. Look at these examples. A college education is a good investment. Now this is too general. To improve it, you can say, a college education is a good investment for 4 reasons. Another example, lasers are very useful. Now again, this is too general. To make an improvement, you can say, lasers have several applications in industry and medicine. Common problem 2 is that the thesis makes a simple announcement. For example, I am going to write about sports injuries. Now this is a simple announcement to be a thesis statement. To improve it, you can say, avoid sports injuries by taking a few simple precautions. And common problem 3 is that the thesis states an obvious fact. For example, the internet is a communication superhighway. This is an obvious fact. Everyone knows that. To improve it, you can say, the explosion of the internet has had both positive and negative consequences. So, what transition signals can we use for writing a logical division of ideas essay? Transition signals for logical division essays include many that you may already know. Look at this chart of transition signals for writing a logical division of ideas. On the left, you have the signals, and on the right, you have some examples. Please pause your video and take a look at this chart. Look at both parts, and then play your video after you're finished. Let's read this model essay together and notice how the paragraphs in this essay are linked. The title is Aggressive Drivers. The number of vehicles on freeways and streets is growing at an alarming rate. This increase of motor vehicles is creating hazardous conditions. Moreover, drivers are in such a rush to get to their destinations that many become angry or impatient with other motorists who are too slow or who are in their way. Aggressive drivers react foolishly towards others in several dangerous ways. Now, to start body paragraph 1, you can use a transition and start by saying, one way an angry driver may react is to cut off another motorist. Then you write your supporting sentences. To link this paragraph to the next one, you can use another transition like this. Another way is to tailgate the other car. And then again, you write your supporting sentences. To link this paragraph to the next one, you choose your transition and again you proceed, like this. In addition to cutting off and tailgating other cars, aggressive drivers often use rude language or gestures to show their anger. Now you need the usual supporting sentences and then a proper link to the concluding paragraph, like this. To conclude, aggressive drivers are endangering everyone because they create hazardous conditions by acting and driving foolishly. They should control their anger and learn to drive safely. After all, the lives they save could be their own. So, to review this again, how do we link one paragraph to the other? We use transition signals between paragraphs. Linking paragraphs with transitions help your readers see how the subtopics are related. Link one paragraph to the next by adding a transition to the topic sentence of the second paragraph. This transition may be a single word, a phrase, or a dependent clause that repeats or summarizes the main idea in the preceding paragraph. Now let's take a closer look at the concluding paragraph. The conclusion is the final paragraph in an essay. It has 3 purposes. 1, it signals the end of the essay. To do so, begin your conclusion with a transition signal. 2, it reminds your reader of the main points, which you can do in one of 2 ways. You can summarize your subtopics or paraphrase your thesis. And 3, it leaves your reader with your final thoughts on the topic. This is your opportunity to convey a strong, effective message that your reader will remember. Here are some techniques you can use to write a memorable conclusion. You can first of all make a prediction, like this. We have seen how the costs of attending college have been rising, while at the same time, sources of financial aid for students have been disappearing. If this trend continues, fewer and fewer families will be able to send their children through 4 years of college. Another way is to suggest results or consequences. For example, to sum up, the costs of attending college are up and financial aid for students is down. Fewer and fewer future members of the workforce are able to educate themselves beyond high school. As a result, the nation will waste the intelligence, imagination, and energy of a large segment of the present college-age generation. And the next way would be to suggest a solution, make a recommendation, or call for action, like this. It is clear that the U.S. system of higher education is in trouble. For many students, 4 years of college is no longer possible because of increasing costs and decreasing financial aid. To reverse this trend, we must demand that government increase its financial support of colleges and universities and restore financial aid programs. Our future depends on it. And finally, you can quote an authority on the topic to write a concluding paragraph. For example, in conclusion, costs are rising and financial aid is declining, with the result that many can no longer afford to go to college. If our nation is to prosper, increased government funding for education is essential, even if it requires higher taxes. As Horace Mann argued in his 5th annual report, a nation's economic wealth will increase through an educated public. It is therefore in the self-interest of businesses to pay the taxation for public education. Okay, before we start talking about process essays, let's look at essay outlining first. Because an essay is long, it is important to organize and plan before you begin to write. The best way to do this is to make an outline. An outline not only organizes your thoughts, but it also keeps you on track while you begin to write and hopefully doesn't allow you to go off topic. If you're preparing for a writing test such as the IELTS test, make sure you spend the first 5 minutes of your time to outline and organize your essay before you start writing. A formal outline has a system of numbers and letters like this. Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3 number the major sections of an essay, like the introduction, body, and conclusion. Capital letters A, B, C, and D, and so on label the body paragraphs. Numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on number the subpoints in each paragraph. And small letters A, B, C, and D, and so label the specific supporting details. What are process essays? Chronos is a Greek word meaning time. Chronological order is a way of organizing ideas in the order of their occurrence in time. Chronological order has all sorts of uses. We use it to tell stories, to relate historical events, and to write biographies, and autobiographies even. We also use it to explain processes and procedures. For example, we would use chronological order to explain how to take a photograph, how to make a piece of pottery, how to perform a chemistry experiment, or how to set up an accounting system. Such essays are called how-to essays or process essays. This model essay is a process essay. It explains two scientific processes involving nuclear energy. Look at the thesis statement. To understand how the accident at Chernobyl happened, it is necessary to understand how a nuclear power plant is constructed and how one operates. To describe how a nuclear power plant operates and produces electricity, the writer would have to use a chronological organization and describe the events in the order they happened. Process paragraphs typically use a chronological organization. Look at body paragraph 2. First, a series of nuclear fissions are produced. When a neutron strikes a nucleus, the released energy then heats the water. The hot water is pumped to a heat exchanger. Finally, the steam passes to a turbine. Now look at body paragraph 3. They removed most of the control rods. Soon the reactor began to overheat. When the reactor overheated, the fuel rods melted. Next, the increased pressure from the steam blew the top off the reactor. Radioactive material shot into the sky. So, do you see how a process paragraph works? Look at the introductory paragraph again. Do you think it has a funnel introduction or an attention-grabbing one? Let's read only the first part. Clouds of radioactive steam shoot into the sky. Fires burn unstoppably, sending radioactive smoke and particles into the atmosphere. Men dressed in protective clothing work feverishly to extinguish the fires and contain the contamination. Hundreds of residents hastily grab their possessions and flee their homes. Roadblocks are erected to keep strangers away. This was the scene at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the former USSR in April of 1986. This was an attention-grabbing introduction. And before you start reading it, let's look at the concluding paragraph. In the end, the cost of the Chernobyl accident was enormous. 31 people died and several hundred were hospitalized. Thousands had to be evacuated and resettled. The soil around Chernobyl will remain contaminated for years. The lesson from Chernobyl is this: a well-designed nuclear power plant using normal fuel is not dangerous as long as proper safety procedures are followed. However, poor design and/or disregard for safety regulations can lead to catastrophe. As you can see, the writer has not summarized the main points or has not reworded the thesis statement. Instead, the writer has explained the end result of what happened and has given a comment. As I said earlier, you can write your concluding paragraph in many ways. Keep in mind that when you learn this process essay properly, it can help you both in Task 1 and Task 2 of the IELTS Writing exam. Now I want you to pause your video and read this process essay. Play back your video when you are done to watch the rest of the video. So here are 3 keys to organizing a process essay. 1, you should discuss the steps in your process in the order in which they occur. Divide the steps into separate paragraphs where natural breaks or groups of steps occur. For example, to write about how to make a ceramic vase, you might divide the body into 4 paragraphs. So you first have the introductory paragraph, then you have the body paragraphs, which are divided into 4 separate paragraphs. The body paragraphs including shaping the vase, first firing, glazing, and second firing. And then you obviously have the concluding paragraph, as you can see in here. Number 2, you should write a thesis statement that names the process and indicates time order. And number 3, you should use chronological order signal words and phrases to indicate the time sequence. Now, one point to remember is that a thesis statement for a process essay in some way indicates the time order. Expressions such as the process of, the procedure for, plan, develop, evolve, 5 stages, and several phases indicate that time order will be used. Here are some thesis statement examples. Follow these steps to make a beautiful ceramic vase for your home. The field of genetic engineering has developed rapidly in the past 10 years. A child learns to share over a period of time. Heating water by solar radiation is a simple process. Sometimes the thesis statement tells the number of steps in the process. The process of heating water by solar radiation involves 3 main steps. The thesis statement may even name the steps. The main steps in the process of heating water by solar radiation are 1. Trapping the sun's energy, 2. Heating and storing the hot water, and 3. Distributing the hot water to its points of use. So in this final part of this unit, I want to remind you about some transition signals for chronological order that you can use in your process essay. Chronological order signal words are very important in a process essay. You have to be very clear about the sequence of steps. Does one step happen before, after, or at the same time as another step? Chronological order signals include all time expressions. So here they are. On the left side of the chart, you have the signal words and phrases, and on the right side, you have some examples. So I want you to pause your video, take a look at these charts. As I said, you have to take a look at the left side, and you have the examples on the right side. Pause your video, check these out, make sure you know how to use all of them, and then off you go.